Today I spent the day getting my mustache for, Picasso all stitched in, I guess. That's not really what it was. It was like looped in or whatever. And, then we trimmed it a little bit and did some styling. Not too much, that's not completely finished. So we have to put it on coal and see what it looks like. But after all of that, I whined a little bit about getting in my car and having to drive home because I'm actually kind of really getting sick of it. I'm so tired of being in my car all the time. I want a break. I want somebody else to drive me around. I'm kind of tired of driving. So, I finally walked to my car, got inside, and the drive back to Arlington was a pain in the ass, honestly, because it always is. Fortunately, I missed all the traffic because Crystal reminded me that there would be traffic. Because I almost just didn't leave. I almost just stayed there for 5 hours for no reason. But once I got here, I realized that I wanted to drive around just to drive around. No particular destination, just wanted to drive. So that's what I did. I went driving around Arlington and visited all the places that, I grew up around. So I went back to South Arlington and I drove past Barnett Junior High, which is where I went to junior high school. And then I went down to my neighborhood, which is actually like right next to Barnett Junior High, and just basically drove around and looked at all the houses that my friends used to live in. Maybe they still do, I don't know. I went past Michael Miller's house. I went past Lauren Shepard's old house before she moved. I went past Danielle Friend's house and Mark Goolsbay's house, because they live right next door to each other. I went past Maria Sanchez's house. She used to babysit me when I was younger. I went past, and I went down my street, which, I knew about 6 to 7 of the houses, the people who lived in them. I'm sure I knew more than that, but that's who I can remember actually talking to on a regular basis. My across the street neighbors, the Courtneys, I believe they still live there. Then next door to them, the Whites used to live there, Cameron and Kayla White. Then just like a couple houses over was the Soto house. And my house we still own it, but we're renting it out to some people that my dad works with. But I drove past and there was nobody there, which was weird. I guess, they're the department of his work that go out of town a lot, because there were no cars in the front driveway, and I don't know, there was nobody there. Basically, no cars in any driveway, because I guess people have lives, unlike me, and I don't know. And I went down to my elementary school, which again is in my neighborhood, and drove to the creek that's behind my elementary school. And the creek has a walk path where you can bicycle and walk, but there's no motor vehicles allowed on the path. And they've built this awesome bridge that goes from this dead-end road to the path, from that path to Green Oaks, which is crazy, because that never used to be there. I remember when I was younger and we lived in that house, behind my house, there was no houses. This was a long time ago, like maybe when I was 6. And behind my house, there was no house. There were no houses behind my house. There was just the creek. And you could cross the creek, and directly behind my house, about, I'd say, half a mile, was the Kroger that we used to go to shop. And when I got older, they built houses right behind my house, but not like directly behind my house. So there was still the pathway that you could take the pathway to the creek, and you could cross the creek and just like, instead of driving to Kroger, you could just walk across the creek. Unless, it was high tide, in which case, no. But, that was really crazy to see that, now they have a pathway built specifically for that function, just about a mile away from my house. And I was remembering, like, I used to take that path to go from my elementary school back to my house. And it was probably dangerous at that time to be doing that, because I was a little kid. I walked by myself, occasionally. I mean, not all the time. But I would walk by myself behind all these houses in this really thick wood, on this tiny little pathway that was not, camera, or there were no cameras, there were no lights. You were just walking. And it was crazy to see that it was actually like developed, so it was safe for kids to walk back there. And I don't know, nostalgia is just such a strong feeling. Like, I miss those days, but I wouldn't want to go back, I like thinking about them. I like to imagine what I was like when I was a kid. And I just, nothing stays the same. The only constant is that everything changes. Everything is constantly changing. And all of these places have changed so much. And and yet the same. My old house, looks exactly the same. And so does everybody else's, except for trees have been knocked down where there used to be giant trees. But trees died in my neighborhood a lot, so you had to cut them down. And, yeah, it's crazy to go back and remember all these details of my life that I've forgotten because I can't store that information all the time. But, yeah, I kind of miss being a kid.